They say wealth begins with discipline, strategy, and vision, but sometimes it starts with a jar of honey. Not metaphorically, but quite literally. Sometimes the difference between a household where energy flows like clear water and one where finances always seem blocked lies not in ambition or luck, but in a kitchen cabinet, not in what you cook, but in what silently surrounds your stove. While most people chase financial growth through external effort, some of the most grounded, enduringly prosperous families, across cultures, generations, and continents, tend to one very overlooked space with almost sacred precision: their kitchen. But not in a flashy or performative way. They don't fill it with gadgets or fill their countertops with cluttered symbolism. They choose specific, symbolic objects, quiet anchors of qi that allow wealth to stay, grow, and flow more naturally. This video isn't about superstition, it's about energy architecture. Feng Shui in its truest form is not about rituals. It's not about hanging lucky charms and hoping they do the work. It's about structure, about environment, about how physical surroundings either support your momentum or silently resist it. In the kitchen, that's the energetic heart of your home. It's where fire meets water, where nourishment is created, where life force is prepared and shared. It's also, according to classical Feng Shui, one of the top 3 areas of the home that influences long-term wealth retention and emotional stability. Not creation, but retention. Because you can manifest all day long, but if your space can't hold what you've called in, it slips right through your fingers. In the next few minutes, you're going to discover 5 unassuming but profoundly strategic items that show up over and over again in the homes of people who not only achieve success, but hold it. These aren't theories. They're time-tested placements rooted in elemental logic. They're not decorative, they're functional. Each one of these 5 items serves a very specific energetic purpose. Some neutralize imbalance, some amplify yang, some act as stabilizers for financial chi, and 1 or 2 might already be in your home, but placed in a way that dulls rather than strengthens. Along the way, I'll share the story of a Hollywood entrepreneur who used one of these principles, not affirmations, not vision boards, to redirect the entire flow of her financial life after a major setback. She didn't turn to magic, she turned to order. And that shift wasn't about belief, it was about the environment she built to sustain what she wanted. You see, there's a quiet principle that underlies every object you place in your kitchen, whether you realize it or not. Nothing in your home is neutral. Everything holds frequency, and when your kitchen, the place where sustenance begins, holds the wrong frequency, your effort gets drained at the root. It's like trying to grow bamboo in clay. The potential is there, but the soil rejects it. These 5 Feng Shui-backed objects are not lucky tokens. They are signals. They tell your environment how to behave. They shape the tone of energy that flows through every pot, every conversation, every cup of tea. They're not dramatic. They don't announce themselves, but over time, their presence has been associated with stronger financial stability, smoother decision-making, and a greater sense of mental peace around wealth. And I'll be honest with you, most of this isn't about money. It's about coherence, because money follows clarity. And if your kitchen is sending mixed signals, energetically confused between nourishment and neglect, it doesn't matter how hard you work. Qi will hesitate, energy won't settle. In this video, you won't find vague lifestyle tips. You won't be told to buy exotic materials or rearrange your entire kitchen overnight. Instead, we'll walk through 5 everyday items, each mapped to a different element in Feng Shui, that, when used with intention and correct placement, create a home environment where prosperity doesn't just enter, it stays. Whether your goal is to reduce the financial anxiety in your household, prepare for more consistent income, or simply create a space where abundance feels natural again. These placements for you, they're grounded, they're tested, and they require nothing more than observation, intention, and very small changes. And before we dive into these 5 specific energy tools, if you appreciate this kind of clear, practical feng shui, free from mystical exaggeration, rooted in structure and symbolic intelligence, please support this growing channel. Give this video a like if it's already resonating with your curiosity. Share it with someone in your life who you know is building their home with purpose, not randomness. And subscribe to New Day Mindfulness so I can continue creating grounded, experience-based content to help you build a life that flows on your terms, in your time, without noise. Your support helps me reach our next milestone of 2,000 subscribers. And with that growth, I'll be able to share even more in-depth guides, deeper analysis, and specific feng shui strategies for people who want real change, not just inspiration. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only know which 5 kitchen items influence wealth, but you'll understand why they work, how to place them, what to avoid, and how to feel the difference, not just see it. Now let's step into the center of your home and take a quiet but powerful look at the space where wealth either builds or evaporates. Let's begin. Item 1, raw honey in glass. Under Feng Shui's elemental view, honey is not just a sweetener, it's a slow-moving symbol of warmth, abundance, and luminous qi. It belongs to the category of natural substances that do not only serve the body, but also quietly instruct the environment how to behave. And unlike symbolic objects that rely on tradition or spiritual history, honey speaks through form, color, and texture. It is golden, which in Feng Shui represents wealth and earth-to-metal transformation. It is thick, which implies storage, retention, and consistency. It reflects light, which activates yang qi and sends it bouncing subtly through your kitchen space. All of this makes honey one of the most overlooked energetic stabilizers in the home, not as food, but as presence. The first principle to understand here is this: visibility matters. Honey kept in a glass jar that is placed near natural light becomes what we would call yang conductive. The glass allows light to enter and reflect. The honey glows, subtly releasing warmth into the space, even without heat. That glow sends a message to the room and to the subconscious of anyone entering it. This is a space of nourishment, sweetness, and sufficiency. It doesn't need to scream prosperity, it whispers it. Just like wealth that stays rarely announces itself, the presence of honey in the right container and position builds a field of quiet abundance that supports clarity and comfort. Now contrast that with the way most people store honey, hidden at the back of a pantry in a plastic squeeze bottle, dusty or half-used. What message does that send? It says the sweetness of life is tucked away. It's not prioritized. It's not reflected. It's just a utility. And energetically, that does something. It removes sweetness from daily chai exposure. It cuts off the frequency that says, this is a home that receives warmth and circulates it. In other words, hidden honey equals hidden prosperity potential. That doesn't mean you need to display it like a trophy, but it does mean intentional placement is key. Ideally, honey should live where light is present. This could be near your tea station, near the stove, if it's not too hot, or on an open prep shelf where morning or afternoon sunlight lands. Use a clear jar made of glass, not plastic or ceramic. Glass allows interaction with both light and air without interfering with the honey's internal stability. The shape doesn't need to be perfect. Round or square is fine. What matters is that it's clean, at least 50% full, and in regular use. Letting honey crystallize without purpose sends a message that sweetness has stagnated. Keeping it refreshed and available says, We live in a space where comfort is shared, not hoarded. Now let's talk about the texture and element of honey in context. In the five-element cycle, honey represents a fusion of earth and metal. Its density connects to earth, stability, nourishment, foundation. But its color and glimmer resonate with metal, especially gold. That fusion becomes particularly useful in kitchens, where you often have fire from the stove, water from the sink or fridge, and wood from herbs or food supplies in constant interaction. Honey introduces an anchor, a warm earth tone that doesn't conflict with the active dynamics of cooking, cleaning, and feeding. Instead, it slows the fill down just enough to allow balance to reestablish itself. There's also an emotional layer to honey's role. It regulates tone. In a household where meals are rushed, conversations sharp, or nourishment feels like an obligation rather than a joy. A visible jar of honey near the morning station can create a tiny energetic reset, not because of what's consumed, but because of what's seen. Its brightness, its natural spiral, its richness. This effect is not theoretical. There have been studies in environmental psychology that show how warm colors in reflective forms can trigger dopamine release and reduce cortisol, even without direct interaction. Feng Shui simply saw this centuries earlier and gave it a symbolic language. And let's be honest, in a modern kitchen filled with gadgets, stainless steel, and microwave edges, the warmth of something ancient, thick, and unrefined provides relief. Honey does not need electricity. It does not expire quickly. It asks nothing of you and quietly reminds you of nature's generosity. That alone is a stabilizing force in a space that, for many people, is a daily battlefield of schedules, hunger, decision-making, and cleanup. In Feng Shui, anything that stabilizes without suppressing is gold. Honey does exactly that. It's also worth noting the difference between processed and raw honey. Energetically filtered or flavored honeys carry mixed signals. They've been stripped of their natural consistency, their enzymes, their natural variants. In design terms, they are like synthetic wood, useful but energetically flat. If you're going to make honey part of your kitchen's chi toolkit, invest in something real. Wild honey, acacia honey, local bee honey, the kind that still speaks the language of plants and seasons. That energy doesn't just feed the body, it reinforces the idea that wealth, sweetness, and security are supposed to come from things that last, not things that are engineered for convenience. Avoid plastic at all costs. Plastic disrupts, it insulates in the wrong direction. It doesn't allow reflection, and it suppresses the temperature regulation that honey needs to maintain its energetic form. Plastic is passive-aggressive, easy to store, easy to forget, easy to neglect. That is not the behavior you want connected to prosperity. Glass says, I care for what is stored. It's fragile but strong, transparent but grounding. That's the message you want radiating through your kitchen, particularly near your stove, which represents action and life force. Placing a glass jar of real honey next to your fire source is like adding calm to courage. It rounds out the edges of ambition with a tone of generosity. Now finally, let's turn to the symbolic meaning of sweetness in Feng Shui terms. Sweetness is not indulgence, it is balance. Bitterness is the flavor of metal. Sourness is wood. Spiciness is fire. Sweetness is earth. It nourishes all the others. A home without sweetness, even in symbolic form, tends to burn out. That's not metaphor, that's structure. And honey placed well tells your home. Sweetness is not accidental, it is maintained. In the next section, we'll explore an object that does the opposite of what honey does. Instead of stabilizing heat, it balances contradiction. It's living, it grows, and it's what allows fire and water to coexist without collision. But for now, remember this: when sweetness becomes visible, Qi becomes receptive. When Qi is receptive, wealth has a place to land, not with force, but with rhythm. And honey, when placed with intention, teaches your kitchen how to hold that rhythm. Quietly, consistently, powerfully. Item number 2, green life. Living filters for fire-water balance. In the architecture of energy, kitchens are battlegrounds of invisible tension. On one side, you have fire, the stove, the oven, the burners, producing heat, action, transformation. On the other, you have water, the sink, the refrigerator, sometimes even a dishwasher. Cool, flowing, introspective, designed to contain or cleanse. These two elements do not mix easily. Water extinguishes fire. Fire resists containment. In Feng Shui, when these forces are placed too close to one another or are arranged without mediating balance, the result is energetic friction. It may not feel like chaos, but it will feel like something's always a bit off. Meals that start with stress, conversations that lean toward conflict, or financial flow that feels unpredictable. The solution isn't to redesign your kitchen entirely, it's to introduce the third element that harmonizes both. That element is wood, and its most natural direct representation is the presence of living green plants. Wood in the 5-element cycle sits between water and fire. It is born from water, feeds on it, and fuels fire. It is the literal and symbolic mediator between the two. And in the kitchen, wood doesn't just sit there as decor. It works, it regulates, it absorbs and re-releases energy in a way that balances the emotional and functional core of the home. Think of a green plant in your kitchen as a living, breathing energy filter. It's not decoration, it's photosynthesis on a symbolic level. It drinks in scattered chai, sharp words, rushing activity, unspoken tension, and exudes stillness, not stagnation, stillness. It offers a moment of breath between movement. But not all plants are created equal. To be a proper energy filter in a kitchen, a plant must be soft in shape, stable in growth, and resilient in care. The most accessible choices are pothos, easy to maintain, trailing and beautifully interactive with air and light. Peace lily, which offers soft, steady upward growth and delicate flowers without sharpness. And lucky bamboo, particularly when arranged in odd numbers, which in Feng Shui supports dynamic Qi. These plants hold what we call stable wood Qi. They introduce life without aggression. They hold presence without demanding attention. And most importantly, they respond well to the emotional field of the home, which means when they thrive, so often does the clarity of the space. Avoid spiky plants at all costs. Cacti, succulents with pointed edges, or ornamental grasses with needle-like blades. These may look modern, but energetically they cut. They don't hold softness. They stimulate alertness, not rest. In a kitchen already full of motion, flame, and rapid decision-making, sharp plants amplify conflict. That's why a succulent may thrive physically in your kitchen, but still leave the space feeling overly edgy. If you feel like your kitchen makes you tense or irritable when you cook, check the plants. Often, it's their shape, not their health, that disturbs the flow. Now, there's a subtle placement strategy here that matters more than most people realize. Kitchens have what Feng Shui refers to as Qi bottlenecks, transitional areas where energy gathers because there's no clear flow through. These include dead corners, spaces behind the fridge or beside the stove, and zones where appliances sit unused for long periods. These are the places where wood should be placed. Why? Because these are energy clots. And wood, when living, acts as energetic movement. A plant in a dead zone does two things simultaneously. It activates the space and filters out what no longer moves. It says, this place still breathes. Over time, that presence changes how you use the room, how you feel while using it, and how focused or chaotic your financial decisions become while inside it. Let's take an example from real life. Martha Stewart, global brand, homemaking mogul, and one of the most financially successful self-made women in American lifestyle history, has spoken on multiple occasions about her preference for keeping live herbs in her kitchen. Not just for their culinary value, but because, as she said in interviews, a kitchen should feel alive to function properly. She routinely places rosemary and basil near her prep stations, sometimes directly on the windowsill, other times on a central butcher block where she works. The reason? Presence, vitality, movement. These herbs grow, they change daily, and in her view, they keep her rhythm in the kitchen from becoming mechanical or uninspired. This isn't a mystical practice, it's energy intelligence. Martha isn't practicing classical Feng Shui, but her actions reflect one of its deepest truths, that the health of a space affects the quality of decisions made inside it. And in a kitchen, decisions include meals, conversations, schedules, and money. That brings us to the secondary value of green life in the kitchen. It serves as a subtle reminder of growth, not ambition, growth. Plants don't rush, they follow rhythm, they respond to care. They die if ignored or over-controlled. The same can be said for long-term wealth. When you place a plant in your kitchen, you are saying to the energy of your home, I value process. You're reinforcing that the field of your household is not just for reaction, but for cultivation. That message reaches deeper than you think. And finally, there's the practical aspect. A plant in the kitchen absorbs moisture, balances temperature slightly, and often interacts with scent, all of which affects your nervous system. Kitchens that smell stale, feel dry, or register visually as sterile are often energetically numb. A living plant reintroduces tone and basim. It's like a tuning fork for the room, and if you maintain it with the same regularity you manage your schedule, it becomes a reminder that care, not speed, is what builds stability. So choose your green life carefully. Pick a plant that won't die in a week, that doesn't spike your fingers when you water it, and that fits into a corner where you barely noticed energy had stopped moving. You'll notice the change, not because the room looks better, but because it feels more usable. The food you cook may feel lighter, the mornings might start more calmly, and you might even find yourself lingering longer in that space because something about it is holding you gently in place instead of pushing you forward. In the next section, we'll move from the realm of living energy to the substance that stores wealth at a symbolic level, not money, not gold, but something far more humble, something found in almost every culture, something that, when stored with precision, tells your kitchen, this is a home that protects its prosperity. Let's talk about rice. Item number 3, a full ceramic jar of rice, earth stability and quiet wealth. Rice is not symbolic of future wealth. It is symbolic of retained wealth. It doesn't beg for manifestation. It doesn't vibrate with active attraction. And it doesn't shout prosperity, it rests. It anchors. It says, this house is supplied. In classical Feng Shui, rice represents the most stable form of earth energy in the kitchen. It holds continuity. It stores nourishment. It is presence, not performance. And the way rice is stored in your home says more about your financial field than most people realize. A full, well-maintained ceramic jar of rice functions like an energetic savings account. It doesn't need to be seen by every guest, but it needs to be seen by the household. Because the relationship you maintain with what you already have is what determines your capacity to receive more. Let's begin with the container. Earth energy in Feng Shui resonates best when it is stored in its own element or a supportive one. Rice, being earth by both origin and symbolism, requires grounding material to preserve that energy. Ceramic and clay are ideal because they are baked earth. They seal the frequency. They hold form without resisting flow. Glass, while attractive, is too light and reactive. Plastic is a disruptor. It disrespects the stabilizing energy of rice and introduces a synthetic interference. And metal jars, although common, introduce confusion in elemental alignment because metal depletes earth in the cycle of elements. So if rice is to be stored with the intention of reinforcing quiet financial stability, ceramic and clay are non-negotiable. Now consider fullness. A rice jar that is less than 70% full transmits the message of insufficiency, even if your pantry is otherwise stocked. On an energetic level, this underfilled jar introduces hesitation into your household chai. It whispers to the space, "We are running low." Over time, that message affects behavior. It may subtly encourage scarcity-based decisions, hoarding, over-planning, overreacting to minor financial shifts. A full jar, on the other hand, anchors calm. It says, "We are not only provided for, we are prepared. There is enough, and we don't need to panic to feel safe." That emotional tone of sufficiency leads to more responsible decision-making, less fear-based reactivity, and even better sleep. This is not abstract, it is pattern-based. The location of the rice matters too. A jar of rice should be stored in a dry, high-up cabinet that doesn't receive excess heat or moisture. This placement protects the energy from rot or overactivation. Cabinets above waist level are best because they symbolically lift the energy of provision. When rice sits too low or in cluttered zones, it becomes dormant. You want your stored chi to be elevated, supported, and respected. That means no shoving the rice between other bags of grains or behind boxes of tea. You wouldn't treat a savings account like a junk drawer, so don't treat rice storage like one. Now let's talk about maintenance. Rice should be monitored for expiration. While it's not necessary to constantly throw out and replace good rice, you must never mix old, stale, or expired grains with new ones. This contaminates the energy. It sends the message that your financial life is muddled or not properly tracked. If you're clearing out old rice, remove it completely before adding new. And never store rice uncovered, even briefly. This invites dust and energetic leakage. Keep the lid secure but not airtight. You want the rice to breathe but not be exposed. There is a quiet practice that amplifies rice's stabilizing energy, and it has less to do with tradition than with psychological anchoring. Once a month, take a wooden spoon. Wood supports earth in the elemental cycle, and gently stir the rice in your jar. Do this slowly. As you stir, mentally or softly aloud, repeat a phrase of sufficiency. Something like, "What I have supports me. I care for what sustains me. I am rooted in readiness." You don't need to believe it perfectly. You just need to create the habit. Over time, this act transforms rice from a food item into a frequency tool. It becomes not just something you eat, but something you align with. People who maintain this monthly ritual often find that their relationship with budgeting, spending, and financial planning becomes more neutral, less emotionally charged. It becomes easier to save, easier to delay gratification, easier to recognize what is enough. And this leads to a more subtle truth. Prosperous families, those who hold wealth, not just chase it, often treat rice differently. They don't store it in torn packaging or disposable containers. They clean their jars, they refill before running out, and they don't talk about rice with reverence. They simply handle it with respect. That behavior reveals something. It reveals a lifestyle that prioritizes quiet continuity over dramatic gain. It signals that wealth is not defined by what's earned in a month, but by what's stewarded over years. And a ceramic jar of rice, when maintained with care, reinforces that mindset. This object, unlike flashy decor or manifesting tools, is not there to attract money. It is there to tell your space. We know how to hold what arrives. We don't waste it. We don't forget it. We care for it. Rice becomes a daily physical affirmation of patience, responsibility, and readiness. And that's what makes it powerful. Not its price, not its rarity, but its reliability. So the next time you refill your rice jar, do it slowly. Clean the lid, check the fullness, pause before sealing it. Understand that the simple act of storing food with care is not just nourishment for the body, it is nourishment for your chi. And in a world that glorifies acquisition, that kind of grounded attention is not just rare, it's magnetic. In the next section, we'll shift from the physical to the invisible, from grain to fragrance. We'll explore the power of scent as a subtle architect of chi in the kitchen and how aroma, when used with precision, can change the emotional signature of your entire home. But first, remember this: rice doesn't raise your vibration, it holds it. And sometimes that's the stronger move. Item number 4, fragrance as frequency. The forgotten mood regulator. Design directs the movement of chi, but scent directs the tone. And when the tone of a room is wrong, all energy within it behaves out of sync. In Feng Shui, fragrance is not categorized merely as a comfort or a sensory indulgence. It is classified as an invisible modulator, a carrier of subtle signals that determine how chi is received, how emotions are shaped, and how decisions, especially those connected to wealth, time, and effort, are formed in the subconscious. The most well-structured kitchen in terms of layout and color will still underperform energetically if its scent profile is neutral, chaotic, or stale. This is not opinion, it's a matter of atmospheric coherence. In other words, a kitchen that smells energetically blank, or worse, chemically distorted, is a space where intention has a hard time anchoring. Fragrance, when used correctly, does not fill space. It tunes it. And the way it tunes a space is by accessing memory and emotion. Research in neuroscience consistently confirms what Feng Shui has long understood. Smell bypasses rational analysis and connects immediately to emotional memory and behavioral motivation. That means that when you introduce a consistent, calm, natural scent into your kitchen, you're not just making it pleasant, you're regulating the emotional undercurrent of the space. And since the kitchen is a zone where money-related discussions often occur, where stress flares around time and nourishment, and where family dynamics intersect multiple times a day, it becomes the most strategic location to use fragrance intentionally. Not as a mask, not to hide unpleasant odors, but to set a tone that encourages calm, deliberate, and generous behavior. Natural scents such as citrus, cinnamon, lemongrass, or basil are especially effective in kitchen spaces because they hold yang energy without being overpowering. Citrus, particularly orange or bergamot, is bright, optimistic, and cleansing. It lifts stagnation from the chi and also from emotional patterns tied to scarcity or hurried thinking. Cinnamon adds warmth and stability, an energetic echo of earth and fire working together. Lemongrass clears mental fog and is often used to sharpen clarity in both Eastern and Western herbology. Basil, especially sweet basil, introduces a quiet herbal reassurance that reminds the nervous system to downregulate. None of these scents are mystical, they are practical. They soften the emotional static that prevents clear planning, kind conversation, or peaceful pacing. But method matters. Using these scents through aerosol sprays or artificial fresheners completely distorts their energy. Synthetic fragrances, especially those with fake vanilla, artificial lemon, or chemical floral blends, introduce chaotic chi. They confuse the field. Your goal is not to make the room smell like a supermarket aisle. Your goal is to allow the air in your kitchen to carry frequency. That means using methods that release natural scent through heat, water, or absorption. Simmer pots are ideal. A simple mix of water, citrus peel, cinnamon stick, and herbs simmering for 20 to 30 minutes introduces warmth, scent, and even visible steam, which gently lifts the qi upward in a spiral motion, symbolically releasing heaviness. Diffusers with 100% pure essential oils are also effective, especially when used near pantry zones, rice storage, or cabinets. Cotton sachets filled with dried herbs or essential oil drops can be placed in hidden corners, like behind the spice racks or in drawers, as energetic anchors. Location, however, is just as important as content. Never place scented items or diffusers directly near the stove. The flame of the stove represents fire qi, and introducing another dominant force near it, even in scent, creates energetic overstimulation. It's like layering caffeine on top of adrenaline. It intensifies what should be paced. Scent should live in passive zones, by the window, in corners near shelves, or by the pantry. These areas benefit from soft activation. They're like pockets of held energy that need circulation without disruption. There's a common misconception that if your kitchen doesn't smell bad, it doesn't need fragrance. That's not the point. Scent in Feng Shui is not about removing odor. It's about introducing an emotional baseline. And the baseline of a space that smells like nothing is neutrality. In a household trying to grow, plan, or pivot financially, neutrality is too weak. What you want is a low, consistent hum of invitation. A room that smells gently citrusy says, something good is happening here. A room with soft herbal undertones says, you can slow down here. These messages, repeated daily, influence the way people speak in that space, how meals are approached, how plans are discussed, and whether people feel urgency or patience. All of that shapes not just the atmosphere, but the financial field of the family over time. One client I worked with, a mid-level entrepreneur with 3 children and a rapidly scaling business, found herself consistently snapping at her partner during meal prep. They had a beautiful kitchen, organized down to the spice drawer, and had even corrected major Feng Shui imbalances between fire and water appliances. But the emotional tone of the room was off. It felt too sharp, too cold. Within a week of introducing a low citrus cinnamon simmer ritual every morning, the difference was palpable. Less rushing, more shared tasks. Conversations that were no longer reactionary. They didn't win the lottery, but they started making better decisions. That was the point. And that's the deeper reason scent belongs in your energy strategy. It quietly shapes the space where decisions begin. Don't treat fragrance as an accessory. Treat it as a silent counselor. Let it shape your behavior from the background. Rotate scents with the seasons to keep your qi responsive. Spring prefers citrus and basil. Summer welcomes lemongrass and mint. Fall embraces cinnamon and ginger. Winter calls for clove and orange peel. Just remember, your job isn't to overwhelm the air, it's to harmonize it. Because a kitchen that smells clean and alive invites better dialogue, smoother preparation, and calmer financial thinking. That's not a theory, it's observed behavior. And in Feng Shui, how you behave in a space determines how the space behaves in return. In the next section, we move from the invisible to the illuminating, from scent to light. Because even the most carefully placed jar of rice or vase of herbs cannot compensate for a kitchen cloaked in shadows. And if wealth is to grow in your home, your space must be able to see itself. Let's explore how light doesn't just brighten rooms, it guides energy. Item number 5, natural light, the invisible energizer of spatial intelligence. In Feng Shui, light is not a mood, it is a movement. It is not decor, it is direction. Light acts as the delivery system for Chai, the force that animates in all things. Without sufficient light, energy slows, thickens, retreats. In the kitchen, where fire and water already engage in a delicate relationship, The presence or absence of light can make or break the flow. It determines whether the energy of the space circulates clearly or stagnates in corners, whether your decisions are made with speed or confusion, and whether your efforts to create and sustain wealth are supported or blocked. The presence of natural light, or the accurate simulation of it, is one of the most vital yet overlooked elements in modern kitchen design. Bright kitchens are not simply beautiful. They are functionally active. They stimulate attention, support clarity, and promote emotional responsiveness. When a kitchen is dim, whether from poor window positioning, overuse of cabinetry that blocks natural light, or outdated bulbs, the qi within that space moves sluggishly. This sluggishness is not just aesthetic, it creates invisible pressure that often manifests in emotional fatigue, disconnection during meal preparation, a tendency to rush or multitask without focus, and even financial forgetfulness, like missed bills, half-finished budgeting, or a general haze around income and expense tracking. That's because your kitchen doesn't just feed your body, it feeds your thinking. And when your thinking space is dim, so is your strategy. The stove in particular must be illuminated, not because it's a cooking surface, but because it represents fire energy, the qi of transformation, progress, and visibility. A poorly lit stove communicates that your active life force, your productivity, your vision, your ambition, is being cooked in shadow. And the symbolism here is direct. Food cooked in shadow may nourish the body, but confuses the field. The result is often inconsistent outcomes. Some days feel easy, others chaotic, without explanation. A kitchen that invites clear chai invites clear consequence. This is not to say that every kitchen must be bathed in sunshine. Many homes, particularly apartments or city dwellings, simply do not have the luxury of expansive windows. But light can be introduced, light can be guided, and when done intentionally, even artificial light can perform the energetic role of natural illumination. One of the simplest upgrades you can make is to install daylight simulating LED bulbs, especially near the stove and sink. These bulbs mimic the frequency of sunlight, not just the brightness. Their tone is vital. Avoid cold blue light. It sharpens the space in a way that agitates. And avoid overly warm yellow light. It mutes focus. Instead, seek that sweet spot, 5,000, 6,000 Kelvin range. It wakes up the room without blinding it. Beyond bulbs, consider the objects in your kitchen that can either amplify or diminish light. Reflective surfaces like polished copper, glass, or even certain ceramics bounce light naturally. These can be placed strategically near dim corners or over prep stations. Hanging a light-toned spoon such as copper, stainless steel, or even brushed brass above a frequently used prep area is an elegant, subtle way to activate qi where light does not naturally reach. The goal is not to decorate, but to guide, to help energy remember where it needs to go. It's also important to examine your kitchen during different times of day. Notice where shadows fall in the morning, midday, and evening. Are you cooking breakfast in darkness? Is the place where your family gathers for dinner lit like an afterthought? These moments are invitations. Qi responds to consistency, but also to timing. If possible, align your main prep space with the time of day when the most natural light hits the kitchen. Morning sun near the coffee or tea area amplifies ease. Afternoon light near the dining table encourages open conversation. Evening brightness near the stove stabilizes the digestive and emotional tone of the end of day. You are not just lighting food, you're lighting behavior. One of the most interesting Feng Shui correlations around light and wealth lies in visibility. There is an ancient phrase often cited in classical text: qi follows the eyes. That is to say, where the eye lingers, energy gathers. In a kitchen, when corners are lit, when surfaces are visible, when items are intentionally placed and clearly seen, your subconscious awareness, this space is active, it is not forgotten. Forgotten spaces become chi traps, areas where energy gathers but cannot circulate. And trapped energy is where wealth goes to sleep. When your space is visible, your wealth strategy becomes visible too. Bills are paid on time, groceries are managed more wisely, financial decisions are made in clarity, not in haste. Now consider the opposite. Think about a kitchen where the stove is always in dim light, where the pantry is tucked in a shadowy corner, where the fridge is backlit by nothing. These may seem like minor design flaws, but energetically, they add up. They create friction, not the dramatic kind, the kind that slows your thinking just enough to miss a chance, the kind that dims your drive just enough to delay progress. Feng Shui is not about extremes. It's about those 2% shifts that add up to 20% life difference. And light is one of the most powerful 2% changes you can make. It's also a powerful emotional regulator. Bright kitchens lead to more shared time, more conversation, more mindful eating. They become zones of alignment, not just for meals, but for memories. And in that alignment, financial tone is stabilized. That's not theory, it's behavioral science meeting spatial philosophy. In homes where light is respected, money becomes less of a panic and more of a flow. It's not about being rich. It's about being energetically equipped to manage what comes in and what goes out. Light makes this possible. So walk through your kitchen today, not with a cleaning list, with an energy map. Ask yourself, where does the light live? Where does it hide? Where do I work in shadow? Where do I eat in brightness? Where do I plan in dimness? The answers you find will tell you exactly what your kitchen needs, not to shine brighter, but to circulate smarter. In the next and final section, we'll look at how these 5 items work not in isolation, but together, as a complete functional energy system. You'll see how each object doesn't just symbolize a concept, but anchors a behavior. And you'll discover how these placements don't replace effort, but support the clarity that effort needs to succeed. Because in the end, Feng Shui doesn't create wealth. It removes the obstacles that keep you from seeing where it already wants to go. And visibility, above all else, is how money finds its way home. Common mistakes that nullify kitchen flow. In even the most beautifully styled kitchens, qi can stagnate if the underlying choices contradict energy logic. That's why the final layer of any Feng Shui kitchen audit involves not what's added, but what's removed. The items you neglect, forget, or let sit unattended begin to radiate a frequency of disregard. And in Feng Shui, disregard is decay. It may not look messy on the surface. The shelves might be alphabetized, the floor might gleam, but the energetic signature of what's expired or misplaced continues to reverberate through the room, and by extension, through your relationship with stability, wealth, and daily nourishment. Mistake number 1 is deceptively common. The quiet buildup of old condiments, stale grains, or neglected corners of your pantry. These are places where expired qi gathers, not in drama, but in slow, energetic friction. An unopened bottle of sauce from 3 years ago doesn't just take up space. It holds a story of meals that were never cooked, plans that were abandoned, intentions that were unfulfilled. And when you allow that story to stay, even in a closed cabinet, it communicates a signal to the space. We forget. We don't follow through. We neglect. Over time, that creates a subtle fog in your decision-making field. It becomes harder to complete tasks, to stay on budget, to maintain clarity around what needs to be kept and what needs to be let go. In Feng Shui terms, old food equals blocked earth energy, and blocked earth means blocked flow. Ui Faombo, not just nutritionally, but financially. So one of the simplest energy resets you can do is to clean one shelf a week, not the whole kitchen, just one zone. Remove anything expired, anything that doesn't resonate, anything that once felt like a good idea but has since become dead weight. Mistake number 2 concerns salt bowls placed near fire, particularly those open salt containers left near the stove. While salt is a powerful cleanser and earth stabilizer, it neutralizes what it contacts. And in the 5-element cycle, earth drains fire. That means when salt is placed too close to your stove, it starts to mute the qi that is supposed to fuel prosperity. Fire is the driver of transformation. It represents your ability to take raw material, ideas, effort, food, and turn it into something nourishing. When that process gets suppressed, the result is a kitchen that looks functional but doesn't feel vibrant. You may find yourself less motivated to cook, less inspired to gather, or simply out of rhythm with how your household uses energy. The correction here is simple. Keep salt away from your fire source. Store it in covered ceramic containers in water or earth zones, like near the sink or in a storage cabinet. Or better yet, use salt only when doing intentional energy clearing and then remove it after. Salt is a tool, not decor. Let it serve a function, not become background noise. The third mistake is subtler and often justified as personality: the over-decorated refrigerator. While magnets, photos, schedules, and notes can feel like expressions of love and intention, they often evolve into cluttered visual noise. And in Feng Shui, the refrigerator is your water center. It holds cooling, preserving qi. It's a symbol of flow, financial, nutritional, relational. When that surface is overwhelmed with conflicting messages, broken magnets, or outdated images, the result is energetic incoherence. Imagine trying to pour clean water through a pipe filled with scribbled instructions, overlapping layers, and contradictory signals. The flow becomes jagged, erratic. The same happens in your household chai. You may notice more interruptions during meal prep, more miscommunications, less grace under pressure, even less enjoyment of meals themselves. The solution is not to sterilize the fridge, it's to curate it. Remove anything that no longer resonates. A calendar from last year? Gone. A magnet from a vacation that no longer brings joy? Gone. A note scribbled in frustration? Definitely gone. What remains should reflect where you are and where you want to go. One family photo, one affirmation, a minimal grocery list, and ideally, space, visual space. Because clarity on the outside invites clarity on the inside. There's a deeper reason these mistakes matter. They are not merely clutter problems, and they are behavior shapers. A kitchen filled with expired items, misplaced elements, or visual chaos creates an environment of noise. And noise forces the nervous system into subtle resistance. That resistance leads to fatigue, reactivity, financial anxiety, and even emotional avoidance. Suddenly, you don't want to cook. You don't want to discuss money. You don't want to linger in the space where wealth is shaped. That withdrawal may feel like a personal failing, but it's often just bad Qi engineering. Feng Shui doesn't promise miracles. It clarifies conditions. It tells you, here is what's helping you, here is what's hurting you. And in the kitchen, those messages are sent not through dramatic symbols, but through the ordinary. A jar of expired rice sends a louder message to your subconscious than any vision board. A greasy spoon left behind the stove says more about your financial retention than a mantra. And a refrigerator door that holds a collage of unrelated scraps tells your water element, get confused, stay stuck. But this is also the good news. The smallest adjustment shifts the whole field. One shelf cleaned, one salt bowl relocated, one photograph removed. These are not renovations. These are redirections. They tell Qi, we are awake again. We're paying attention. And in Feng Shui, that's often all it takes to turn stagnation into movement. So ask yourself quietly today, what have I forgotten in my kitchen? What am I still storing that no longer feeds me? What am I allowing to remain in the room where my family's rhythm is set? The answers may surprise you, but they will also empower you, because in the end, Qi doesn't need perfection. It just needs permission to move. And removing what doesn't serve, that is the most powerful permission you can give. The 5 items we've explored today, honey, green life, rice, scent, and light, aren't about decorating a kitchen. They're about shaping a container that holds rhythm, a rhythm of effort, intention, and quiet reinforcement. When you place these objects with care, you're not trying to trick the universe into delivering more money. You're tuning your space to help you make clearer decisions, hold what's already working, and let go of what drains you. That's the difference between chasing wealth and creating a place where wealth feels invited to stay. Your kitchen is not just where ingredients become meals. It's where your home rehearses its relationship to consistency, nourishment, and flow. It's where your habits anchor, where conversations unfold, where silence in the morning and laughter at night set the energetic tone for everything that follows. And the items you choose to place or remove shape that tone far more than you think. A ceramic jar of rice in a clean cabinet says, "We take care of what sustains us." A living plant near the fridge says, "We let energy move, not stagnate." A clear shaft of light over your prep table says, "We see what we're creating." These are not metaphors, they are environmental choices. And in Feng Shui, environmental choices are behavioral instructions. They shape how your subconscious moves through the day. They affect whether you react or respond, whether you plan or scramble, whether you feel resourced or depleted. That's why we don't use these tools to manifest. We use them to reinforce, because what you reinforce becomes normal, and what becomes normal becomes fate. So as you step back and consider your own kitchen, don't ask, which item do I need to buy? Ask instead, what energy do I want this room to teach me to hold? Because when you treat your kitchen as a place where qi circulates, not just where meals are made, you start feeding more than your body. You start feeding your future. If today's video helped you see your space differently, I invite you to share it with someone who's building not just a home, but a life with clarity. Leave a comment below and let me know which of these 5 items you're already using or which one you're ready to try. And if you'd like more grounded Feng Shui insight, free from superstition, rooted in structure, subscribe to New Day Mindfulness and help me reach 2,000 followers. Your support means more thoughtful videos, more practical tools, and a growing community of people shaping homes that hold energy, not just stuff. Thank you for spending time with me today. May your kitchen hold more than heat. May it hold a future that flows gently and powerfully in your direction.